everybody, this is Brian Finnerty from Macabre Daily, your resident mental health therapist by day, spooky horror writer by night, though in the case of today, actually early morning.
Sorry.
Be No worries. And the reason I'm here this morning so early is because we're chatting with Alan Shivers, all the way over from Brussels, Belgium. Uh,
Yep.
Good morning slash good afternoon.
Yeah. Good morning, and thanks for waking up that early. The
Ah,
time zones, it's not the easiest, I know.
For you, I am happy to. Um, I'm on like honestly super happy to be talking to you because um, so the credentials out of the way real quick. Alan is a YA horror author who has published 5 books and is in the process of adapting his most well-known trilogy, the Trilogy, into a TV series. Um, I'm super excited to be talking to him because a little behind the scenes, Alan and I actually just literally just met 2 days ago.
Yep.
Um, I saw him on Instagram and I saw his little profile description describing himself as a slasher author with a focus on queer representation and mental health. And that is
Blue
literally
light
just
check.
it's catnip to me. So I don't
I
usually
find
do
my
that.
people that way.
I don't usually do it. I'm not usually so forward, but I just immediately sent you a message to introduce myself. And
Yeah, I appreciated that. We have a lot in common, so it's cool to find your people right through these ways.
oh, for sure, it's a beauty. I mean, social media can be a mess, but it's also beautiful in that way every once in a while.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
So yes, I mean we end up like just chatting in real time for I think about an hour that morning. Before we knew it, we had this interview set up like a day and a half later,
Mhm.
and I was lucky enough to carve out some time and blow through your first book yesterday. It's the first time that I've read a book in one day since I was like a kid, I think. So,
So I
um,
hope that's a good sign.
absolutely a good sign, and people should take it that way. Um,
Thanks.
but yeah, so thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So to start off, I was wondering if maybe you could just kind of tell us a little bit generally about your writing and your books. Like how would you describe them to people who aren't familiar with you already?
Yeah, I'd say it has a bit of a 90s slasher vibe going on. So I think biggest
Hmm.
inspirations were Urban Legend, Scream, I know we did last summer, Cherry Falls, Valentine, like the early 2000s as well, a little bit. Sorority Row. I kind of selfishly missed chase scenes and the kind of campy ensemble casts.
Hmm.
So I wanted to kind of bring that into my own writing and also introducing different settings because a lot of slashers are very US based, which I absolutely love. But I thought it
Hmm.
would also be fresh to kind of take it away from the typical summer camp or Midwestern town, sleepy town in the States, and set it in like big European cities. That way you have the tropes, but you're subverting them at the same time, and you can talk more about like European subcultures as well.
Hmm.
My own homes, my previous homes. Yeah, so kind of started doing that during the pandemic as you know, some people make banana bread. I tried, but I failed. And I was like, okay, I'll just try, see what happens. Because I mean, I studied literature for at university years and years ago, and I was always a bit too, I guess, embarrassed at first or too insecure.
Hmm.
And then through a breakup and pandemic, it was kind of the thing. Okay, what do I want to do? What could actually bring me happiness? And it grew very organically. And I'm very fortunate that people seem to appreciate it, and I have found very yeah, lovely audience, lovely readership. So I'm lucky with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody needed a COVID hobby, right?
Turned into a bit of a passion project, and now
Hmm.
a job. So I'm yeah, again lucky with that too.
Yeah. You mentioned one of the things you mentioned was like the setting of your novels, and I think that was what jumped out to me the most as making them like really unique is taking place in these like old historic European cities, like you said,
Mhm.
and a lot of focus on the architecture. Um, I feel like at least for me personally, when I think about that setting. like the in terms of subgenres, more giallo movies tend to come
Yeah.
immediately to mind, but you don't think slashers. So,
I guess the Italian vibe is in there somewhat. And I'm also a bit of an architecture geek slash nerd slash whatever you want to call it. So I definitely wanted to incorporate the history and the architecture that we have here in Western Europe. And yeah, almost make it a protagonist in a way too, that the building speaks for itself. Like
mm,
the first one, European Halls of the trilogy, is kind of set at a boarding school, and it almost becomes a character because it's where most of the action takes place. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned that like your day job is as a teacher, right? Did that inspire some of your writing? Not
Not
that
the
not
kills.
that not that you can tell us any specifics. Not the
No,
kills.
definitely not the kills. Some of the students have found me because obviously, yeah, Alan Shivers is a pen name, as you know. But some of my students have somehow found me and
Wow.
discovered it. But I have been teaching at a European school, which is a specific type of yeah, it's a very unique school, as in it brings people from all over Europe to specific schools in Brussels. So I have about 16, 17 nationalities per
Hmm.
class that I teach. I teach literature in those classes, English. And it's really fun, and I've learned a lot from my students, having a Bulgarian student, a Czech student, a Spanish.
Hmm.
Um, it definitely broadened my horizons, and some of them were definitely used as inspiration, also including my own previous homes. I've lived abroad. I've lived in Budapest. I've lived
Hmm.
in Krakow, in the UK, etc. So kind of bringing all those cultures together, um, yeah, was inspiration. Thanks to the day job. For now, we'll see.
Hmm. Hmm.
We'll see how long for.
Uh, so you mentioned obviously you're inspired by just your love of slashers.
Mhm.
And I think I heard you say this in another interview that you did, just acknowledging that slashers are are not as traditionally popular in Europe. So I guess I'm curious, like, how did you first fall in love with them, and like how did you get exposed to them when you were younger?
I think it was one of those teenage things where me being European, I'm used to European cultures, and that kind of feels like home. So when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, I started watching a lot of American sitcoms.
Mm.
And anything that was American culture felt very exotic and different to me from my perspective. And I watched all these, Full House, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all those kind of things first. Kind of jumped into that culture, and then I bumped into Buffy. I'm a huge,
Ah,
huge Buffy fan.
of
And then
course.
through Buffy, then of course in '97 you had Scream 2, I Know What You Did Last Summer. So those were the first ones I ever watched, and then yeah, just immediately fell in love. And it was never a big genre in Belgium. There are a couple of slashers here. Cobb is one of them,
Mm.
and there's a series called FOMO that was shot here as well, but it's never been as big as in the States. Um, so yeah, it kind of became the thing where it felt exotic and fresh and new, and I wanted to learn about all these stereotypes of the jock and the cheerleader. We don't have any of those things here.
Mm.
There's no cheerleaders, there's no jock groups. We're all a little bit more mixed up, I guess, a little bit. Yeah, there's no segments as much as there might be in those kind of films. So I was
Mm.
very intrigued
Yeah.
by the Americanness of the genre.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like I love learning those things about just like how different cultures view each other, right? The stuff that
Mhm.
feels so mundane and everyday and cliche to us feels exotic to you, and then vice versa, of course.
Yeah, like I
Um,
guess for you, I suppose things like giallo Italian films feel very exotic to you, whereas for me, that's more like a home genre.
Absolutely. And even just, and I mean this in a good way, I think one of the challenges of reading your book as sadly, self-deprecatingly, a very Americanized individual is I found myself having to really focus on, okay, so this character is from the Czech Republic. This character is from Brussels. This character is from here, and trying to figure out the different cultures that I
Mhm.
think sound like uh, it's just very natural for you to include that kind of diversity. But it's
Mhm.
uh, in America, like when we talk about diversity, we're usually talking about like racial diversity or sometimes like sexuality diversity, but that more it's just kind of a new way of thinking
Mhm.
about it that I like. It kind of pushes us out of our um, out of our daily box.
Yeah, yeah, that's nice that it's a different way of looking at things. And even just language-wise, like all these characters speak English together, but none of them speak English as the first language. Same with me. I grew up speaking Dutch, Flemish,
Hmm.
French. So it's kind of English is kind of utilized as a language to bring different cultures together.
Mm.
Whereas obviously for you being the native tongue, it's a different perspective, right? So I've had a lot of Americans also ask me, how do you pronounce the characters' names? Because they're like kind of butchering them in their own head. So
Yes. Um, so you mentioned chase scenes, of course. That's seems to be like one of your favorite elements of these kinds of stories.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely love chase scenes. I prefer the build up and the tension rather than
mhm.
the necessarily the payoff. Like
Yeah.
even if you think about Helen Shivers, I know what you did last time, her actual death wasn't that memorable. It was the chase scene that people keep talking about, or prom night, or Sasha and Urban Legends. The actual death wasn't that grotesque or anything. It was more about like you're really rooting for these people to make it through. And I've always
Mhm.
had a big thing for chase scenes, and I really miss it. And there's not that many contemporary slashes or horror in general that have big chase scenes anymore. And then
Yeah.
even when we read other people's comments, a lot of them like bring back the chase scenes. So I'm bringing them back. There you go.
Somebody had to.
There
Thank
you
you for
go.
doing good work.
My pleasure. It was a selfish move to be honest at first. So.
I wonder, like, not to put you on the spot with this, but do you have any theories on just like why are we as people and horror fans, like why do we love chase scenes so much? What is it about them?
The kind of the cat and mouse
Hmm.
psychological aspect, I guess, that it's easier to put yourself in someone else's shoes when you feel more of their emotions, I suppose, rather than if there's a quick death scene, it's probably more difficult to, I don't know, maybe that's the way I see it. If it's a quick death scene, it's more difficult to see that perspective. Whereas if
Hmm.
there's a gradual build up, maybe it's easier to imagine. I don't know.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah. I was thinking perspective too, like, but almost from the idea of with a chase scene, it lets us like project ourselves into it more, maybe, and it's more of a kind of more of a personal, more becomes more interactive in that way. We can
Yeah,
probably almost why we like post-apocalyptic scenarios, right? And people are
yeah,
always saying, well, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? Where would you hide out? And you can do that with chase scenes too. Like, what would you have done? Would you have run upstairs? Would you have jumped out the window? Would you have grabbed a weapon and fought back? It's kind of a Rorschach test.
yeah, yeah. That's true. Kind of the fight, flight, freeze mechanism comes into play that way too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I suppose that's one of the reasons I love it as much. I just love being in someone else's shoes and going like, come on, you can make it, you can make it. And I'll actually, it sounds pretty dark, but I love it when in the end they don't make it. It- like some people kept saying like justice for Helen, but I know what you did last summer, but I don't think it would be as memorable if she were the final girl
Yeah.
and if she made it through. But this way it makes it way more dramatic and way more impactful because you're really rooting for someone. And I think
Hmm.
a chase scene only really works when you already know a certain character and you've been with them for a while. You've been with them through their struggles, and you kind of know the dynamics between them and different protagonists. Whereas if you just have a chase scene in the beginning of a film, it's a fun intro, but you won't be as emotionally attached, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, you've mentioned like fight and flight, you mentioned mental health a couple times. And
Mhm.
um as I mentioned, that was one of the reasons I was immediately drawn to your work. Um I was wondering if you maybe could just talk a little bit about why, I guess, number one, how do you try to represent mental health in your stories, and like why is that important to you or meaningful to you?
It only came from the sequel. So when I first started writing, I was a little bit too self-conscious to put a lot of myself in the work. I
Mm,
mean, there's definitely a lot of myself in the love for slashes, whatever, but mental health-wise, I wasn't ready yet, if that makes sense, because it was all very fresh. But
yeah.
then, in all transparency, I've been in treatment for PTSD for a couple of years.
Hmm.
And then when the first book was well received by slasher lovers, there was this moment that I remember that I was just started typing about what PTSD actually feels like in the body. Because a lot
Hmm.
of it, it's very easy, not easy, but it's very maskable. So
Hmm.
most of the time, people can't see when I have a trigger or when certain things hurt or don't hurt or whatever. And I really wanted to kind of write that out of my system. And there's this scene early on in the sequel, Europea Halls 2, that I just started writing and I started bawling, just crying, writing
Hmm.
for 2 hours. And then afterwards, it was kind of out of my system. I thought, oof, this is way too vulnerable. I shouldn't keep this in. But then I thought, well, why the fuck don't I actually keep it in and see what people think about it? So I was really, really scared of releasing the second one because it's probably, well, it's way more personal than my debut.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have reached out because they said, I haven't really seen PTSD represented in a way in horror that was detailed and realistic and not just, oh, I have a panic attack. That's not the same as PTSD at all.
Yeah.
And it's very one dimensional the way it's used a lot. And also in pop culture, a lot of the time someone has a test or whatever at school and they go, oh, it gives me PTSD. And it's kind of a throwaway comment. And
Hmm.
I get it. If you haven't been through PTSD, it's you can't know what it feels like, what it looks like, and how slow progress is, and how non-linear process is.
Yes.
Um, but I wanted to, yeah, make that part of the storyline. And I was also thinking, a lot of the times with slashers, you have your final girl, your final boy, whoever,
Hmm.
but very rarely you see how it actually impacts them on their day to day afterwards.
Yeah.
With like legacy sequels, you have it a little bit nowadays with the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, the new Screams, but it's never, in my opinion, like fully fleshed out. So I really wanted to have a character who's vulnerable, who's going through treatment, who's not there yet. At times she'll be strong, at times she'll be weaker, if you want to call it that way.
Hmm.
But it's never just one answer. It's not just that you respond to trauma in one way. So maybe for some people, but not for me.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to be vulnerable and truthful. And I'm glad I did it now because I feel like the more I am myself in my books, the more it seems to be appreciated. Not by everyone. You can never please everyone. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
now I feel very comfortable writing about it, to be honest.
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, you'll never please everybody, but you'll please the
Mm.
important people, right? The people for whom it is meaningful.
Yeah, even if it's just one person. I remember the very first person reaching out, their husband was in treatment for PTSD.
Hmm.
And this woman said, I've never seen it that way. I've showed it to my husband and he started reading and I was going, and he said, oh yeah, they talk about certain things about dissociation and how it actually feels and walking like next to your body, not feeling the actual gravity of your body, things like this.
Hmm.
Having vertigo in very weird ways, whatever little triggers by smells. So it
Yeah.
felt liberating in a way to get that kind of feedback. And
Yeah.
after that one message, I thought, okay, my job is done. If it can help one person, that they just don't feel as isolated.
Hmm.
And I think it helped myself too, once again, because I felt very isolated for a very long time, thinking
Yeah.
nobody else is going through this, nobody gets it because nobody sees what it
Yeah.
feels like.
Well, because
Um,
like you said, it does tend to be so invisible. I say
yeah.
this in my day job to clients all the time, is that we often look at people and we see just calm, or
Mhm.
we see a smile, and we wouldn't
Yeah.
think anything. But if you attached a bunch of wires to people who are struggling, not just with mental health, but just with daily life, we would
Mhm.
realize just how much more activated and how much more is going on inside the body and the brain than we would ever guess from just looking and interacting with people.
True. And I hope there would be a lot more empathy that way too, when people actually see what it does to someone. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah. No, I
Yeah.
agree. It's nice to talk about it. It's scary. It still feels a bit like vulnerable and you're
Hmm.
stripping away a layer, but at the same time, the right people like yourself will, you know, react to it accordingly.
Yeah. I like genuinely appreciate you just being willing to share so much of yourself and being so open and transparent.
No, I
I
appreciate. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
kind.
Um yeah. The therapist in me, I'm resisting the urge to now just talk about all of this for an hour because I want to,
Yeah.
but
We
we
can have
will.
a sequel, the mental health sequel.
Oh my goodness.
There's one thing I wanted to say as well about this is that by being that vulnerable, I didn't realize, and I think I told you before,
Hmm.
how many people in horror community have gone through trauma.
Hmm.
Thinking of Jamie Lee Curtis memes now with the Halloween promotion. Trauma,
Trauma,
trauma.
trauma.
but it's true that like once I started talking to fellow indie horror authors, readers, directors, producers, whoever in the industry, so
Hmm.
many people have gone through trauma, and it's such a opening and warming and welcoming community that I
Yes.
don't think I've ever felt as much myself as being part of the horror community now, and it's felt nice to find a home where it's not a pity party, but we all know we have certain baggage, and it
Yeah.
doesn't need to define everything about who we are and whatever, but it's part of us, and we found a safe framework to project certain things.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's how I see it.
That's that's been a fascinating thing for me to learn as well. Like I've been a lifelong horror fan, but it wasn't really until more recent years that I started realizing, like, oh, people are actually using horror to, as you said, to like process and experience catharsis from like their own mental health and trauma, and like that is not going to work for everybody. I mean, I think
No,
you have to like horror, you have to feel comfortable with the discomfort of horror for it to work. But for
yeah,
that subpopulation of people, um, it's really incredible to hear them finding healing and catharsis and through things that we would typically describe as like just so bloody and gruesome
yeah.
and
Mhm.
scary. Uh,
No, definitely. Catharsis is the key word that you just mentioned there. Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice way to find some kind of relief, even if it's temporary. It's
mhm.
it's also therapeutic. And I think a lot of people, there's not much of a gray zone with horror, right? Either people love it or they hate it usually.
Yeah.
It's not like with action or comedy that people are kind of okay with the genre. I've had a lot of people, even in my family, going like, "Ooh, horror, it's not for me," like a very strong, visceral kind of reaction. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people that don't like horror don't get that it can be a very profound genre that does a lot more than what people give it credit for.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea too, that it's not, yeah, horror is a genre that doesn't really live in that middle space. It's like you're gonna have an extreme reaction one way or another, whether it's
Yeah,
in our case, a really healthy, enjoyable, sometimes helpful one, or in the case of non-fans, like total revulsion and running in the
yeah,
opposite direction.
yeah, definitely. And then even within horror, there's so many subgenres that like I'm not the biggest fan of extreme gore. I can appreciate it for the art that it is,
Mm,
but I much prefer like build up and tension rather than just gore for the sake of gore if it's too
mm,
gratuitous. But I think even within the genre, there's so many different styles and different styles of people too.
yeah.
So all these
Funny.
subcultures.
Funny you say that, and I take you at your word, but reading your book, oh, some of your kills, they're pretty gruesome.
And you read the first one. That's like my mild one. It gets way more out there, to be honest.
You're just getting warmed up. Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
so,
by far the mildest. Oops.
well, that maybe segs into the other important thing I wanted to give you a chance to talk about, which is obviously adapting Europea Halls into a TV show, right?
Yeah.
Um, So I mean, yeah, I guess
I
just generally, what has how did that come about, and what has that been like for you?
um very exciting, very surreal, to be honest. In just the space of it's been a year now since last August, the first contact happened with a director.
Hmm.
The director, I got in touch with the director of the last matinee, the Giallo slasher,
Okay.
Uruguayan, really, really recent, very strong slasher with Giallo tones. And we started talking and then met a whole bunch of people. The network started spreading, like a lovely co-screenwriter from the Netherlands that I get on very well with.
Hmm.
Um, and then it just started organically taking shape, I suppose. And then signed the option with a production house from Belgium. Co-productions are in talks and everything. And yeah, there's not that much that I can say about it yet because a lot of the stuff is still in development and
Hmm.
there's still question marks, obviously. But it's really fun to kind of be able to go back to your own debut and dig a little deeper because it's a trilogy, Europea Halls, and the
Hmm.
idea so far things could always switch for the series is that would be 8 episodes for one season, but representing one book. So that way, if there's 8 episodes, you can go a lot deeper with side characters or even with the protagonists and dig a little deeper in their psyche. Have some
Hmm.
extra kills, some extra locations in Brussels.
Oh, good.
So
Make it even more gruesome.
absolutely. I'll keep the chase scenes for sure. But the fun thing is that I'm very much involved with the process. That I'll be
Mm,
co-screenwriter, showrunner, co-showrunner, or something like that. So it's not just that people bought the rights to the book and then it's I'm not part of it anymore, which would be fine too. I mean, I would have been happy with anything at this stage, being such a newbie and people showing interests.
yeah.
But part of the creative process and learning about script writing, and I've written some scripts by now too. It's really fun to learn a different style of writing and
Hmm.
working more with directors and producers now. So it's a fun, yeah, it's very exciting in the future because there's a lot of different projects I'm working on, not just the series, but some features as well. So,
Mm,
yee, that's all I
wow.
can say for now.
Gosh, you are so busy. I am I'm happy if I can just get my laundry done and maybe crank out a couple of reviews for the website and you're off here writing features and new books.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you have a full life going on and everything too, and the other job and everything too, right? So I guess that's the positive side of being single. I have a lot of time to write stuff.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, there you go. It's like might as well be creative now. I have summer off, with the teaching job, so I'm just trying to write and create a lot. And I created like 5 different film pitches over the last week, all
Hmm.
horror, but all different genres, with different people that I'm in touch with. So it's just very, very fun and very promising. We'll see.
Yeah. Being involved in adapting your own work. I know you probably can't get into details about like, plot points and whatnot, but just is there anything you could say generally about have you felt like you've had to kind of change or shift a lot, or do you feel like you're staying pretty true to the original story?
Pretty true to the original story, but more depth,
Hmm.
more gore, more Brussels. Um, yeah, I think it will stay pretty truthful to the original, but you never know. It's very possible that someone from higher up comes in and goes, "Hey, we want to change the ending."
Mm.
Very possible, and I'm open to that. I think the nice thing with also being the author of my own books, I'll always have those books. No one will be able to touch it or change it. Whatever those, it's my intellectual property, my IP, and
Hmm.
whatever then happens with film or series adaptations, I'm very flexible in people having a different spin on it. It's nice when my story becomes our story,
Hmm.
Different people are involved, different screenwriters, producers, directors, the way they see the story evolving. I'm super open to it. It's fun to collaborate on something that I started with and that
Mm.
it can grow that way. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very generous of you. And I agree. I think people's mileage will vary on it, but there's it's kind of if you're going to adapt things, I'm almost more of the philosophy that like maybe we should sh change a few things up because otherwise like there have to be some surprises. Otherwise you know
Yeah,
everything that's going to happen. So
that's true. If you've read the trilogy, then you know all the twists that are coming, all the killer reveals, all the so it would be fun to change that up a little bit while still staying truthful to the tone, I guess mostly.
mhm. Yeah. Um so like I said, we could talk about all this stuff for all day, I think, at least for another hour. But
Yeah.
uh, in the interest of time, is there anything else about your books or anything that you're either working on or other projects that we maybe haven't gotten into that you would wanna mention when you have the chance?
Just quickly, I guess. So the first trilogy is a boarding school trilogy set in different cities in Europe, EUROPEA
Mm.
HALS. Then I've got a standalone, which is also a prequel called the Namaste Slahser, which is really fun
Mm.
to write because it's set at the mindfulness retreats in Croatia. That one is very queer in a lot of the storyline on the characters and everything. So that's a mindfulness retreat slasher, which also works as a prequel to a new trilogy that I'm writing. The first one has been released called Killer Vocals.
Hmm.
That was a girl band slasher, really fun to bring in. Kind of saw, how do you call it, like X Factor boot camp, kind of.
Okay.
They're forming a girl band, but then instead of being booted off, they're being killed in horrifically gruesome ways, and they don't realize what's actually happening. And the sequel's almost out in October. There'll be a third one of that. Other projects, I'll be co-writing a slasher with another author this year as well. A
Hmm.
very uh, prolific author that I can't say the name of yet, but I'm super excited and grateful to be working with that person.
Hmm.
And then a lot of pitches and screenwriting is happening, and there's a lot of stuff that, of course, is very vague at the moment,
Hmm.
and also stuff that I can't say. But watch this space, as they say. It's a cliche, but I do hope and I do believe that a lot of stuff is going to change very soon. So
Yeah, a lot of potential out there. So we'll see what it turns into.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's the thing. Mhm.
so Alan, how can for people who aren't already connected with you, how can people follow you? How can people stay up to date on these projects?
You can follow me on my socials. So just Alan Shivers author, either on TikTok, Instagram, on Facebook a little bit too. Mostly on Instagram and TikTok.
Hmm.
All the books are on Amazon, but you can also find them in any bookshop globally. If they don't have them in stock, then they'll be able to order it from your local bookshop if you want to support your indie bookshop in a small town somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to keep on track of how things are evolving. And the moment I'm allowed to say specific things, I will do. But it's
Mhm.
also kind of nice to keep it a little bit.
Keep the mystery a while.
I know,
Build up
exactly.
anticipation.
There
Mhm.
you go. If you want to see some proper European chase scenes, keep following.
Fantastic. And then so yeah, follow Alan for sure. And then we will definitely on our website and on our social media over at Macabre Daily, we'll make sure to as long as Alan will share it with us, we will make sure to push it out there and make our audience aware of everything coming out and how they can find it.
Very
So
inspiring.
well, Alan, thank you so much for this time and this wonderful, wonderful conversation about all things horror and mental health, which are my two favorite things to talk about.
Yeah, likewise. It's really nice to find your people, like I said before. So I've enjoyed this. I appreciate.
Absolutely. Well, hey, goodbye, everybody out there. And yeah, thanks again for your time, Alan. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.